107.5 WGCI Shine's number one for hip hop and R&B. It's the morning show with the destined legend Leon Rogers, the beautiful Kendra G, the shortest stand man in Chicago, myself, Kyle. And right now in the studio, Chicago, man, she's been holding this down since she took over as mayor of this great city of Chicago. Give it up for Mayor Lord Lightfoot in the building.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing real good.
Appreciate you stopping by.
My pleasure.
This is on your way to work?
Yeah.
Do you ride the train? Are you in motorcades?
No, I'm in a car.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, like most times, like when you interview public figures and mayors and stuff, they look stressed. You don't look stressed.
No, you know what? It's a big job. There's a lot of tough things you have to do every day, but I just try to live my life, live my values, and you got to take time off as well. You know,
Yeah.
So I got a soon-to-be 12-year-old. She's turning 12 later this week. So what we're mostly focused on is like the huge birthday celebration.
Yeah.
So how
10
she feel
years is
having,
coming.
like,
Yeah, no kidding.
her mom runs the city of Chicago. Like, how is she dealing with that? You being a public figure, always on television.
Listen, what she tells me all the time is when I come home, is like, you're not the mayor of this house. I'm like, all right, put me in my place.
That's hilarious. It's got to be tough, though, because you do have such a big job, and it seems like you're trying to tackle so much at all times that there always can be somebody that feels like they're not being addressed.
You know, look, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy, not only as mayor, but in life. And I recognize that. What I try to do is say, okay, here's the things that I know that we need to accomplish. Let's invite people to the table. Let's bring them along the journey and walk down the path together. I'm not always going to be able to please everybody, and I know that, but my heart is in the right place. I know what my values are. I know how I'm trying to move the city forward, particularly in black and brown neighborhoods that have never seen a mayor, aren't getting the kind of investment that they deserve. I want to make sure that black and brown kids growing up in circumstances like mine, that I grew up in, that they have every opportunity at their fingertips. That makes sense for a whole lot of reasons. One, it's the morally right thing to do, but also if we don't provide a pipeline of opportunity for our kids, they're not staying in Chicago. They're going to go elsewhere. Yeah. And then we're going to continue to see the exodus of people from our city. I want our city to grow back to 3 million, and you can't do that if neighborhood after neighborhoods on the south and the west side aren't included in that prosperity.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I agree.
So can we talk about Choose to Change? Because this just happened over the, I want to say Friday. You pledged to give more funding to that. For those who are not familiar with Choose to Change, can you break that down?
Yeah, so what happens is we identify a group of CPS students, typically in their high school years, who are at risk, meaning they're at risk of dropping out of school, they're at risk of being victims of violence or being perpetrators of violence. We provide them with intensive cognitive behavioral therapy. We get them mentors, and then in the summer, we get them a little job, so that we are providing a whole infrastructure of support to them. And the data of how these kids are able to prosper in this intensive program is off the charts. Not only do they do well while they're in the program, the lasting effects of it after they're out of the program, after they graduate, have been tremendous. When we made this announcement of new resources that we're going to put into this program, and we had a young man who's 21, who's a graduate of the program, and you know, no one had a dry eye. I mean, this young man has gone through so many struggles, but he said the first time in his life that he felt loved and supported was through this program, and it's turned his life around. He had a child when he was still a teen. He's become a better parent. He's now got a job, and sees a pathway for his life that he didn't see before.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the census. Let's talk to our African American and our Hispanic brothers and sisters out there how important the census is to getting the things that we need. Because a lot of us are scared of that. They don't do it. They don't bother. I know I got guys, they get it in the mail like, man, I ain't filling that out. You know, they get scared when this is something that could actually probably help them.
No, the census is critically important. Just think about it this way. We get money back from the federal government. We send a whole lot of money to the federal government. We're supposed to get money back. For every person who's not counted, we lose $1,400 every year times 10. So if you think about that and you think about an undercount, that's tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that should be coming back to our city to help support all kinds of programs that are important to the quality of people's lives. But that money's not available to us if we don't get the census. 10 years ago, Chicago's census count was 66% of our residents. That's a horrible record. That means almost 40% of people didn't get counted. Right. And you count if you're a baby, you count if you're a senior, you count if you're a citizen, you count if you're undocumented. All of that's important. So we set a goal of 75% this year. I want to see us blow way past that level, and to make sure that people are not afraid. We are educating folks. This is confidential.
Right.
Your business isn't going to do it on blast or on Front Street. And we're sending people out to really preach the gospel about the census. They're your neighbors, right? So we're hiring people all over the city, both through City of Chicago, Cook County, state, and the Census Bureau itself, who are going to be your neighbors, who are going to come to your house and say, hey, let me get you registered. It's about a 10-minute process, and it can make a huge difference in the quality of life in the city.
I want to ask you about something that affects me directly. I guess there's two parts to it, because one is the rideshare tax.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it's kind of is it supposed to be used as a motivational factor to get people to maybe spend more time on public transportation.
That's correct.
And then the second part of that deals with, right now, there's been a lot of conversation about increasing safety on CTA in the trains. You know what I mean? And I always felt like, one, taxing people doesn't necessarily push people to public transportation. I always felt like if there's a way to make the CTA and the trains a little bit more comfortable and more safer, because that's part of the conversation, I thought that might be a little bit more motivational than taxing people on the other end.
Well, I think we're doing both. We definitely want people to ride the CTA because it's a lot more economic or environmentally sound. So that's a big part of it. But also, you travel in the downtown area at any point during the weekday in particular, you can't get from one part of the downtown area because the level of cars has exploded exponentially because of rideshare. So part of it is also the congestion issue as well. Now, part of what we've done is we've commissioned a congestion study. That study will be available to us later this year. We'll, I'm sure, invariably have to make some tweaks. But what I hear from people is it's already making a difference. And the thing that we didn't do is, based on the data that we did have, we saw that a lot of people in black and brown neighborhoods were not coming downtown. They were going from one neighborhood to the other on rideshare. Those rides, we've actually reduced the amount of the tax on those to incentivize people to actually share rides from neighborhood to neighborhood, and we're seeing some early results of that. On the CTA, look, I will tell you, I almost lost my mind when I found out what the numbers were. And I've been in this conversation since last year with the police department. We move 1.6 million people every day on public transportation. That's the city of Philadelphia that's moving through our public transportation every day. There is no way that people should feel safe or feel like they're not safe on public transportation. That's just totally unacceptable. So we're doing a couple of things. We're going to increase the number of police officers that are patrolling on the platforms, on the trains. They're going to be in uniform. They're going to be visible. We're going to make this a highly sought after assignment. That's issue one. We are also making sure that we are having more coordination between the CTA and CPD, and that's already in process. And we are going to aggressively go after people who commit crimes on CTA. One of the things that we're seeing is a lot of young people are sticking people up for their iPhones. Why are they doing that? They're doing it because there's a market for stolen iPhones. So what I've said to the police department and the state's attorney, we need to find out who's selling these stolen iPhones, and we need to hammer them, because if we cut off the marketplace, then the teenagers are going to be less likely to shake people down for those iPhones.
Right.
100%. So this has got to be a holistic approach. But we are not going to live in a world where people can't get on the CTA and ride safely from one place to another.
Right. So before you go, it's a two-part question, but the first part, because you brought the police department, our first time talking to you since Eddie Johnson is no longer the superintendent.
Yeah.
Now I got to tell you, I'm heartbroken over that, because I loved Eddie Johnson. We'll probably never get the whole story of the details, but did he do something so bad? Like, he can get his job back? Like, I mean, what we got to do to bring Eddie Johnson back?
Look, I'm heartbroken over it as well. This is not a decision that I entered into easily. But as I said in making the announcement, I can't tolerate a world where the chief law enforcement officer of our city doesn't tell the truth. It's simple as that. It's not about me. He lied to me, but he lied to the public. And the chief law enforcement officer, the superintendent of the police, has to set the moral standard. We talk about holding officers accountable. Well, if I didn't hold him accountable for the things that he did, what message would I be sending not only to the officers on the beat, but to people in the neighborhoods who feel like there's a different set of standards and rules for police officers than there are for them? I just couldn't, given what I knew, couldn't tolerate that. Look, the facts will come out at some point, but it was important for me to send the right message, and he knew what he did was wrong.
Okay, I got it. I know. I think Leon has a question, but the second part was the Jussie Smollett. Now, are we dragging this out too much?
Yes.
We're dragging out too much?
Yes.
How do we end it?
Well, I think if you all didn't talk about it, look, I understand people, it's a sensational story, and people want to talk about it, but when you think about all that's going on in this city, all the challenges we face, but also all the great things that are happening, why do we care about Jussie Smollett? Right? The dude doesn't even live here, right? I mean, why do we care about him?
Right.
You know, he perpetrated a horrible crime that he said was perpetrated against him, a hate crime. He paid these dudes. They've admitted it. They've confessed.
But he doesn't
their
agree to
role.
that now. He doesn't.
And he'll have his day in court. He's supposedly showing up at Cook County Criminal Court today to face his punishment and face justice. And I'll let that play out. But we spent over $130,000 in police resources to chase down what turned out to be a total hoax. So I'm going to hold him responsible in civil court, and we're going to take his money.
Well, I want to talk about a group that I feel which is very racist. I feel like they target African American and Latino people. And it's these damn red light cameras. What we gonna do about that? I got about like 4 chickens. I think they just out to
I'm like,
get me.
is he talking about and apparently my friend has some experience.
I mean, right off 55th, every time I don't even be turning, man. They be like, blinker, blinker. I be like, yo, I ain't doing nothing. I mean, but seriously though, on the red light cameras and parking violations and such like that, I feel like sometimes in the lower end communities like the Inglewoods and stuff, when they're getting these tickets, these people can't get their cars out.
Man, you're 100% right. So here's what we've done. On the red light cameras, I told my CDOT commissioner, we need to look at these cameras. If they're there for safety, then that's one thing. But if they're there just to collect money, we got to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting for her to give me a report back on that. On the other thing, you're 100% right. Let me just give you this. Cook County is the highest Chapter 13 bankruptcy filing jurisdiction in the country. And Chapter 13 are the individual bankruptcies. Why? The vast majority of people who are filing for bankruptcy in Cook County is because of debt that they owe to the city because of tickets.
That's terrible.
People have lost their homes, they've lost their income, they lost their cars, they've lost their driver's license because they owe us money. We have been historically balancing the city's budget on the backs of poor people, working class people who just trying to get through the day. So we started to unwind that process last year. We had over a 1.5, we did city ticket amnesty and other fees and fines that we gave a break on. Over $11.5 million in fees that we waived for people who were saying, you know what, I need a break, and more to come. And the same thing on water and sewer bills. We were shutting off people from access to water in homes.
Right.
You know water's a basic right. If you don't have water in your house, you can't live in your house. Right. What are you supposed to do? So there's more that we will do. Soon we'll be announcing another effort on the taking of people's cars. In the last 5 years, the city of Chicago's taken over 50,000 cars.
What do they do with them? Auction?
Sell them at auction.
They sell them at auction or
I had two of them
sell
sold.
them for scrap. Here's the sad thing is, because the storage fees compound, people just say, you know what, my car's not worth it, and they give it up.
$35. Listen, I got it's a Pontiac GTP sitting in there, 96 and a Honda Accord 93. I mean, no, but dead serious. You get the tickets, you can't pay it, then it's $35 a day storage, and next thing you know, you owe the people $5,000. I only paid $2,000 for the car.
Right. No. And people shouldn't have to make that kind of sacrifice. So we're going to do more to make sure that we reform it. We're going to do more to make sure that, look, some folks are racking up a lot of tickets. We got to look at that. But we are also want to make sure that we do payment plans that are reasonable. Before, you had to pay half down, right? Hey, this is my man who's going to do
He knows put me out front on this one. I'm willing to work for free on that one.
He's an ambassador for
Man, listen.
Right. No, we got to do better. We can't keep taking people's driver's license cars and driving them into bankruptcy, and we will do better.
I'd like to take you back to last weekend. It was a very big deal. The NBA All-Star Weekend was here in Chicago.
Yep.
So I kind of want to ask you two parts about that. For us, we felt like it was great. So number one, for you as mayor of this city to host such a large event that's on a worldwide scale, I want to know how you felt about it. And secondly, just your thoughts on the loss of Kobe Bryant and his daughter, because we know that you're a fan of basketball. Yeah. We saw you had a little hoops back in the day.
Yeah, a little bit. Look, I just think the legacy of Kobe Bryant thankfully will live on because he was so much larger than being a basketball player. The fact that he spent so much time and energy really supporting girls and women's basketball. Commissioner Silver, who was a classmate of mine in law school, told this story over All-Star Weekend. The last conversation he had with Kobe was about how he could personally help the WNBA. And he put him in contact with the WNBA commissioner. Like that same day, Kobe reached out to her. They had a 3-hour meeting about things that he wanted to do to strengthen the WNBA, to make sure that girls like his daughter had a pipeline for a professional career. Yeah. So to me, that speaks volumes about the guy. There's a lot of other great things that he did. He cared about a lot of homelessness issues and affordability in LA, devoted his time, his resources, his talent, recruited other people for it. So I hope that part of his legacy also gets lifted up. And today, obviously, is the day that the memorial is going to be for him at the Staples Center. I heard all day long people who literally travel from all over the world just to be close, and that tells you a lot about what he's done. And as far as the NBA All-Star being here, look, I did 25 events over the course of the weekend. Talked to people from all over the country, all over the world. The city was really, I think, shown at its finest. And we're not going to have another 20-plus years go before we get another NBA All-Star Weekend here. But I think we did a great job. This is the kind of events that we need to have in Chicago to showcase all of our talent. And I'll tell you one of the greatest things about it, and there were a lot of great events, they spent a lot of time promoting the women's game, which I appreciated, but they also brought these all-stars out to our neighborhoods. Yeah. Our kids got to touch and feel them in places like Pilsen and on the south side and on the west side. You can't buy that kind of goodwill. When these folks are going out and our young people are able to participate, man, oh man. I was at an event where there was a bunch of young people that the NBA had sponsored to think about plans and programs that they could bring to their neighborhoods. Great event. These young people were absolutely spectacular. But I'll tell you one thing that really, really clicked for me. They had Muggsy Bogues there, who I know back in the day, and we had some fun with. They had a number of other former NBA greats for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, 25 events. What's your appearance fee, man? How much it costs to bring you out to a cookout? We need to get you out here, host our 5-year morning show party. How much you gonna charge us?
Oh no, I'll be out there.
Okay.
I just knew you was gonna do a PSA. And say, hey, look, this is Lori Lightfoot, and I'm not talking to you as your mayor. Don't y'all act up out here.
You saw the meme going around in Chicago.
There
was a meme going around Chicago. Don't act up All-Star Weekend.
Don't embarrass us.
Don't embarrass us.
Well, it was a great weekend.
Yeah.
People had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We were a little worried about some of these unofficial parties, but people behaved themselves.
They were up here too. Everybody was worried.
That's a whole other interview, man.
That's a whole other show.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot, thank you so much for stopping by this morning. We appreciate you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing, man. We're very happy to see what you're doing for the city of Chicago. So thank you.
Yes.
And she's still getting ish done.
GCI.